I can still see your face, West, on the side.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our chat about online authority. My name is Emma Roloff, and I have over a decade of experience in the enterprise sales space. And one of my most handy dandy tools while I was in that role was creating content online. And after starting that process, in earnest during COVID, I saw how valuable of a tool it was for businesses. And shortly after that, decided to join James here in the consulting company to help other companies really tap into what it means to build online authority and trust at scale and what it can do for an organization, and not just salespeople, but leaders across the company as a whole. James, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, babe. I am James Roloff. The company is named after my last name, Roloff Consulting. That's what we do.
Our last
So,
name.
yeah, our last name. The patriarchy speaking here. So my background is in digital marketing. I did website design for about a decade, helping companies build websites that help them attract new customers. A large part of what I did in that space was educate people on how to do good digital marketing and how to be that trusted authority in your industry so that people will find you online. They will learn from you because you are teaching them things through your blogs, through your webinars, through your social media posts. And in the process of that, they will learn to trust you. And so when the time comes to make a purchase, they see you as that favorite teacher and the person they want to work with. And surprise, surprise, you win some big deals. So that was how I grew my web design company. And after that business was sold in 2021, I started Roll-Off Consulting, which is what we're doing here now with our team. And that is helping people implement that, right? It's helping people build out that digital strategy that positions them as the expert in their industry, builds that online authority, and allows you to grow trust at scale. So just like we tell our clients to do, we're here today and we're chatting. We're talking about online authority, modeling good behavior of showing up online and teaching people things. Because again, this is how people buy nowadays, right? When you look at how research is done in buying decisions, over 80% of the time it starts online. It starts with people going onto Google and doing searches there. It is them on social media, following different people that are interesting and talking about the problems they have and the solutions they're seeking. And now, more recently, it is AI visibility, right? Is people going to ChatGPT or into Gemini or into Claude, and they are talking with the AI overlords and trying to find information, but they're also finding vendors there too, because the vendors that show up in those results or in those prompts are building trust too. So that's a long-winded way of saying how we got here and what we're talking about today.
I was expecting a much more peppy introduction, but you went into kind of like what we're going to be diving into in a little bit more earnest. So we are obviously going live because we want to be able to take questions and get interaction from everybody who's joining us. But to just kind of get started, James, I think like a good way to talk about this is kind of like where the philosophy initially started, in terms of like our sales strategy and what we coach customers on. So I'm going to tell a slight story and then hand it off to you to talk a little bit more about the favorite teacher framework. But my background is in teaching. So I used to be a social studies teacher and then moved into corporate training. And we always joke that it was once upon a time a intervention at Thanksgiving from you and your family to convince me to come over to the sales side. And during that time frame, we were talking about like I didn't want to like make people do things that are uncomfortable for them or make them like feel like they have to spend money that they don't want to spend. And you used the phrase, the best salespeople are teachers, to convert me into maybe the dark side, or what I thought was the dark side back in the day. So can you just share a little bit about like what our favorite teacher framework is now that kind of started at that point?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and so my background was that I joined the web development company and I was tasked with sales, and I did not want to cold call people. I did not want to cold pitch people in emails. I didn't want to go to networking events and have my job feel like it is to convince people to buy from me. I wanted to be there to actually network and meet with people. And so my approach to selling was teaching. And I decided that instead of trying to pitch people on the importance of buying a website, I'm going to teach people about digital marketing. And if they learn from me, then they're going to want to work with me, right? And they're going to want to actually, get a website built by the person who knows what they're doing and knows what they're talking about when it comes to digital marketing. So that was kind of the genesis of this educational selling that we did, and in the process of that, after years of doing it, one of the things that I developed was this concept of a favorite teacher framework. And it's again kind of becoming that favorite teacher in your industry by showing up on a regular basis, creating educational content, and allowing people to learn from you and trusting you. But in the process, obviously you educate a bunch of people, they see your content, but eventually when it comes time to buy, you have some call to actions in place. You're using lead magnets, and they raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in your product. I'm interested in your service. And that allows them to go organically into your funnel. But I think a really important thing is the leads that come through educational content and through the online authority. Those leads are not as cold as if you were cold pitching people, right? These people want to work with you. They already like you. They already trust you. And a lot of times it's more of like, instead of you teaching one to many, like you are right now, when you are talking to a lead that came through this educational sales process and comes through this favorite teacher framework, these people, you're consulting them one-on-one. You are being that advisor to them, and you're able to talk about their problems and their solutions, and that innate level of authority is already there. So long story short, it worked out really well for me selling websites, and I know you implemented it obviously in your process of selling software too.
Yeah, so we've got a question or a comment, maybe question comment that came in talking about the fact that we need to stop using AI in work and especially school. And I think one of the biggest places that we've seen generative AI come out in full earnest has been in content creation. And I think that AI is a tool. There is a time and a place for it, right? And when we are working with our clients, talking about where and when and how to use AI as a part of their content strategy, it is always used as a tool, not a replacement. And part of the reason that we look at it as a tool for ideation or maybe like cleaning stuff up or making sure that you don't have typos, that type of stuff. Well, that's like really baby AI when we're talking about like Grammarly and stuff like that. But when it comes to using AI to try and replace yourself and you in your content, it doesn't have the desired effect. And I would love to, certainly chime in the comments if you've seen the AI schlop that's coming out all over the place. There's even been work slop coined by Harvard Business Review to talk about it being used as like creating an end product within the workspace. But like when you see somebody who has like an AI generated image along with a post that's clearly just regurgitated from ChatGPT, it doesn't build trust with that person. It doesn't make you think like, oh, wow, you're clearly really smart. I want to work with you, or you're going to be able to help add value to what problem I'm trying to solve here. It makes you think a little less of that person if they couldn't even put their own LinkedIn post out there, or they couldn't create something that made you build that trust. And so I would agree that there is definitely overkill in the space of AI and content creation. But James, you've obviously talked about like on the YouTube channel and beyond where and when you can use it. So I'd love for you to kind of chime in on maybe some of the use cases that you think are like a strong point for that.
Yeah, I mean, the topic of today's conversation is online authority, and echoing what you said, like AI is disastrous for online authority. And I say it in the sense that like when I'm on LinkedIn or I'm on a company website, I'm on their blog, or I'm reading a newsletter, and it's like very clearly written by AI. I just, the person's credibility goes like down a notch. It's not even like it's neutral. It's like it's down a notch, right? If you can't even come up with your own original thought process, and you have this AI slop content in your company content, that instantly loses credibility and that hurts your authority. But now on the flip side, like you said, I'm not adverse to using AI. It's one of those things that I use it often, um, especially for moving between mediums. So, for instance, we're on YouTube right now, right? And yesterday we released a YouTube video talking about LinkedIn Premium and whether or not it's worth to upgrade to LinkedIn Premium. So that was a video that I recorded. It was just me talking at the camera, and I knew what I wanted to say because this is like a question we get very commonly from our clients. So I gave my thoughts and opinions on whether or not I think LinkedIn Premium is worth it. Go ahead and slam the button to go back to our channel to watch that, but don't leave right now. Actually, we're talking. But I took the full transcript then from that video, put it into ChatGPT, and use that to help write a newsletter. Yep, use that to help write a blog, right? So that is me with 13, 14 minutes of written, spoken word transcript. So it is me talking in my tones and my style and the points I'm trying to make. And it's not just like regurgitated Reddit slop. It's like actually my thoughts from working with hundreds of different clients on this stuff. So that allows us to like use AI, and it saved me probably 45 minutes of time to have to write that newsletter from scratch. So that's how I use it. Is more of a, well, let me just say even more basic, right? If you were talking about online authority and AI tools, AI comes back to the data that you use. And if your data that you're importing into AI is your information, it's your data that has to do with your thoughts, your processes, your experiences, then that can be great for saving time to build authority and create content online. If it is, in fact, just you typing a single sentence prompt into ChatGPT saying, write me a LinkedIn post about accounting, right? Like, and you're an accountant, like that's going to look terrible on you. So that's how I think of it. Like you said, it's a tool, but more importantly, what translates to authority is your data and people understanding that it's your information that's coming out there.
Well, and I think that other things like being able to use AI to cut up longer video clips. So maybe you've got a long YouTube video and you want to be able to take some snippets of it and put it onto other social channels. That's another that, like, not everybody is a video editor. There are tools that are available for you in that capacity. And I also just, like, when it comes to AI, always hesitate a little because what definition are we operating off of? Again, I made the joke a little bit before of like the Grammarly AI correcting, typos and that kind of thing. That is a type of AI. And so is the platform Descript, which allows you to go in, highlight stuff and delete it rather than video editing. You're looking at the transcript and you're like, those are use cases for artificial intelligence, but it's different than generative AI. So I'm always careful when I say, like, yeah, don't use AI as a part of your content strategy. That would be stupid because there are so many tools that make content creation easier that are powered by AI, but using generative AI to replace your ability and your expertise is a very short-sighted move when it comes to creating that trust that online authority builds. Especially if you're in the B2B space and you are selling to other businesses, you want to be able to put your expertise forward, and trust is ultimately the currency that drives business. And if you are not doing enough to create that trust and that authority by showing up with your actual experiences and helping people truly solve their problems through the content that you're creating, and of course, adding in components of inviting them to come work with you and come into your pipeline, then you're never going to create the kind of business opportunity that you're hoping to with your content. And, a lot of people will talk about, I tried social selling or I tried creating content and it just takes too much time. And I don't have enough time to focus on this. What is your thought process, James, when someone says they don't have time to create content?
You don't have time not to create content, right? No, so I was actually with a group of people yesterday, that run all sorts of different businesses, mostly in the B2B space, but even the B2C too. And we were talking about that because they were recognizing that they need to be creating content, but they didn't even know where to start. And they already felt overstretched with their business. And, a framing that I always talk about when it comes to content creation and building online authority is that it's replacing other forms of sales. And if you're in any given week, if you're spending 10 to 12 to 26 hours a week doing sales activities, then you can use some of that time for content creation, and that is sales activity, right? If you are like us right now, we're here on LinkedIn creating content, and I'm not trying to hard sell anybody who's watching right now, but we're here to build authority and talk to people about topics that we're passionate about, that we run our business on. We could spend the same time, cold calling different businesses, asking if they want help with their online authority and showing up online with digital strategy. But like, that's not going to be long-term effective for us. And for us to, build this content out and build up people who are engaged audience who enjoy working with us, that will pay dividends going forward. And that's how you have that exponential growth curve. So going back to the conversation I was having with those other business owners, they recognize the fact that their buyers are now going online to look up their services, and they see their competitors out there doing these things. They see them online creating content, and they're showing up, and then they're not doing it. And so I think it's one of those things that yes, it takes time, but it is worth it, and it's an investment in your business, and it's part of that business development process. And it has a long tail to it versus, traditional sales activities are linear. You just trying to contact people. Creating good content will go on and on and on. And the last thing I'll say on that is that good content creation will help you refine your message. It forces you to think through how you teach people. It forces you to think through how you talk to your prospects, how you position your services in a way that, just winging it during discovery meetings isn't the same. So I think a lot of people that start creating content actually get much better at running their business because they get much more refined in how they talk about the topics related to their business.
That was a big thing that happened for me. I got better at my job, but not just because of like constantly talking about it, but also it gave me a lot more confidence in my own expertise. And so like a little bit of my background for those that aren't familiar with us, I was in enterprise sales for about 10 years of my career. And when I first started in that role, I was 24. I was selling software, which automatically makes it slightly male dominated, into the insurance industry and manufacturing. So I was often the youngest person and often one of, if not the only woman in the room, and coming in and interacting with all of these executives who like had kids my age. It was a little bit of an uphill battle for me to get that type of authority in the room to drive the conversations the way that I wanted to from a sales perspective. And once I started creating content online, not only did I get the authority and the trust that came from me sharing my expertise and kind of proving out that I do, in fact, know what I'm talking about and that I had experience in the industry, but it also gave me the confidence to walk into those rooms in a different capacity than I had had before. So I knew that like I had tested out my ideas and tested my knowledge, and I knew that my ideas resonated with people because of what I was doing with my social content. So then when I walked into a boardroom and I sat down with an executive, not only had they seen my content, they'd seen the social proof of other people interacting with it and getting value out of my expertise. But then I had that kind of like crowdsourced confidence to be able to make me kind of like hold my seat at that table in a different capacity than I probably would have been able to had I not been creating content at the same time. So I got those reps, which as a salesperson, unless you're in front of a customer and kind of like going through that process of in-depth conversations and consulting, or pitching, you often don't have a lot of opportunities to get like that routine exposure to those types of conversations the same way that you do when you're creating content. So you get more reps, it builds your confidence, and then you've got that social proof in the background to build that credibility even more when you're in the room.
Yeah, and I think on that same topic of the benefits of authority, one thing that would be good for us to chat about too is just like the other ways that we see B2B companies trying to build authority, and just how less effective they are and or how expensive they are. We have a lot of clients in the financial services industries, and they will go and they will pay $5,000,
I
$10,000
was
for,
going to say, you're being generous.
yeah.
Depending on the stage, even a panel conversation can be like $30,000.
Yeah, just to be up on a stage, to talk to a room full of 200 people or 1,000 people or whatever, because that's how they build authority, right? Is to be talking about your topic in front of a lot of people who might be buyers from you. And again, with online content, you can sometimes you only get a couple people that view your content. Other times you get thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people that view your content, and it's free, right? Free, except for the fact that it takes your time. It takes a consistent effort, like we were talking about already, to make that happen. But it is really, really important to think about the fact that your organic reach through the content that you create online has a monetary value to it. And if you are someone that tries to do paid social and tries to boost posts on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and you see how much reach you get through doing paid ad campaigns, and you can spend $1,000 and get a couple thousand people to view your content, or if you have someone on your team, or if it's you and you are consistently creating content, every single time you wake up in the morning and you press that publish button, you get 1,000 people to view your content. That has a lot. That's a massive monetary value. And I did a calculation on this 2 years ago, just for our personal business accounts, when we were talking on LinkedIn about the monetary value of our reach. And I think it was like $75,000 was like our value of if we had used ads to reach the same amount of people in that time period. And that was 3 or 4 years ago. And I think we more than quadrupled the amount of reach we have on LinkedIn alone. So,
well, and there's another avenue to this too that like is a little bit harder to calculate in that capacity. But going back again to my software days when I started creating content and wasn't, to your point, wasn't getting the reach that I have today, but was getting good reach and reach that was valuable from like an ad dollar perspective to the company. But even beyond that, once I started creating content and doing a really good job of sharing that expertise, invites started to come to do things like moderate panels or give presentations because people trusted that I would show up and give educational presentations as opposed to trying to pitch. And so suddenly I was on stages getting panel spots or moderating spots, which in my mind, if you do a good job of moderating, is even more valuable than a seat where you get to speak every 10 minutes, and or keynote positions where I had the opportunity to have the attention of the whole conference on me. And that is real monetary value too. Going back to what you were saying, even if you pay, let's say $5,000 to get on 5 stages, that's $25,000 on the low end for you to be paying for that exposure. But if you're creating content that's getting you good exposure and building trust, then all of a sudden you get those 5 spots from a speaking perspective, which is another $25,000 worth of value in addition to what you would get if you were trying to pay to reach those customers with your social content. So it creates this like flywheel for you that as you get good at creating that content that's speaking to your target audience's problems, people that are in your industry that put on these events all of a sudden see not only are you attracting that attention, but you're not going to get up there and pitch. So then you get these organic opportunities, which are more valuable and a higher dollar amount because people know you're not paying for them. They see you up there as an expert and not as a sponsored spot. And we all know exactly what it's like to be sitting in the background of a conference and watching like a panel that's all been bought and sold. And you're like, oh, well, this was absolutely useless to me because it was entirely a commercial.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that's the big secret of all this, right? Is like true authority versus paid reach or cold outreach. And build an online authority. That word comes loaded with the connotation of like actual expertise and actual lived experience and actual trust building. And that's where the benefit comes in here, is that you're able to do it in a way that people want to hear from you and they learn from you and they're excited to hear from you, again, versus being that paid person. Or worse, you're doing cold outreach and annoying people when they're trying to go about their day. You're interrupting them with your cold pitch versus actually trying to find you online and go through that process. So I think what we could, as we kind of go through the half hour here, start wrapping things up, maybe a good place to end it would just be talking about like what to do, how to get started, right? If you were someone who's brand new to this concept, maybe not brand new to the concept, but looking to get started, right? You've been on the fence, you've been hesitating about how to build that online authority, how to create that thought leadership content. What would be your suggestion for the beginners?
So the first thing that I would say you want to do, and we do this with our clients in the Catalyst community during our like personal branding sessions, but it would be to sit down and really think about where you have a unique perspective, where you know that your customers are continuously getting caught up in the same challenges over and over again, and how you can start to talk about those things. Now, obviously, we go further in depth in this when we're going through that personal branding strategy with our clients in the Catalyst community. But I think just even thinking through, where do you have a unique perspective and where do you continue to see people getting caught up? That's a really great spot for you to start creating content. And then one step further than that is start thinking through, what are the questions that you get on a regular basis from your customers during early prospecting calls, or while you're working on an implementation with them, or as you're consulting someone, what types of things are you diving into with them? And start keeping just like a piece of paper or a notebook or something next to you that can operate as an idea bank. So when you get a question from someone where you're like, yeah, okay, I hear that on a regular basis, I'm going to jot that down. Or, oh, there's another client doing the same thing that I see go wrong in every single one of these situations. Write it down. And then pick a goal that is actually attainable for you. There are plenty of like personal branding and content gurus, especially on other platforms, that will tell you like you need to be posting like 5 times a day, or you need to post 30 days as like a challenge stretch to get it done. Don't try to go so far that you burn yourself out. Think about what is a realistic goal for yourself. And maybe when you're just getting started, it's posting once a week. And start with that idea bank. So you're writing down stuff throughout the week. And then when it's time for you to come up with your one post a week, you go back to that idea bank and you say, okay, here's this common question that I get from my customers. I'm going to create something that helps them answer this question or helps them think about this topic from a different perspective that will add value for them. And you start doing that once a week. And over time, that muscle is going to start to build and you're going to get more content ideas. Once your brain starts to get used to connecting these types of ideas that you're seeing out in the wild in your meetings and in your interactions with your clients back to how you can create content. And it's going to get a little bit easier for you. It's not going to take you as long to create a post 3 months after you've been doing it on a regular basis as it does the first day. So start building that muscle once or twice a month, which by the way, or not a month, a week, which by the way, if you are posting to LinkedIn on the business side, or even most of the other platforms once a week, you are already in the top 1% of people creating content. And especially on LinkedIn, if you are posting once a week, you are going to show up on your clients and like people in your industry's feeds when they come onto the platform, because there's just really not as much content as there is people consuming it on LinkedIn. So it's very easy to start standing out by just like that once a week or twice a week. And the last piece that I would say is, while you have that goal in front of you, let's say we're doing 2 posts a week, we're getting like a little fancy, we're not just staying at one. If we're doing 2 posts a week, experiment with what kind of content you're creating. LinkedIn gives you all sorts of different formats. You can do an image, you can do a text post, an article, a carousel, a video post. You won't know what feels natural to you and what resonates with your clients the best way and your prospects the best way until you experiment with different kinds of content. So try out a video, try out a carousel. Maybe it's a selfie that you do alongside it, but there are so many different types of content that you can create that while you're in those early stages and there aren't a lot of people watching because you haven't necessarily built this like massive platform of people that are following you for this like thought leadership that you've got, experiment with it and find what feels natural to you. So then that way, when you're creating the content, it doesn't feel like a chore because like you and I both create content very differently. I am a very video heavy person and I've been a video heavy person since I started. But you are much like you enjoy writing much more. You are very good at like creating longer form content where I tend to be more on the short form content side. So both of us have gone through that experimentation process to figure out how we best communicate with our audiences. And now it's not difficult for me to create video content because I've spent 5 years building that muscle and my audience knows exactly what to expect from me. And I know people that write articles on LinkedIn, which like sometimes you'd think like, oh, really? That's like a big, but they have a huge following strictly from those articles that they've been writing and they barely ever show their face on the feed. And then I know other people that create meme content and have literally like 1 million plus followers on LinkedIn because they're funny, but there's also like a kernel of value and knowledge that's coming through in the way that they're creating that content. So you can choose whatever feels most natural to you so that it doesn't feel like a slog. And once you get into that like process of creating once or twice a week and experimenting, you're going to find your groove and you're going to find what works best for you. And then you just stick to it. And again, it can be a couple of times a week, but within 3 months, you're going to have people starting to say like, ooh, I've been seeing that you've been posting more, or I really thought that that post that you made on X, Y, and Z was insightful, or you really cracked me up with that meme. And then suddenly, once you get to 6 months, you're going to look up and you've got multiple deals in your pipeline that you can attribute back to either conversations that started from content or someone who started following you and all of a sudden sent you a DM, or a follower who connects you with somebody because they trust you to give a recommendation. And you're going to have all of these opportunities that have been created by just strictly staying consistent.
Yes. No, I think that's a good long way of talking about getting started. And I think a really important little gem to pull out of what you said too was just that if you post once a week, you are the top 1% of users. And this it's not just LinkedIn. It's YouTube, it's Instagram, it's for all social platforms. They generally follow that same rule that 90% of people just lurk. They are viewing. And I can even tell you from the stats today of us on the live stream, when I look at the number of users that came through, watching us talk at different points throughout this live stream, 90% of people didn't comment, right? 10% of people will occasionally drop a comment in and actually engage that way, which I'll note comments are content. That is a way to engage people and a way to show up online as commenting and just being part of discussions. And then 1% of users will actually create content on a regular basis. And that regular basis is once a week. So if you can show up once a week and create content once a week, you will be seen. You'll start to build that online authority. So,
well, let's wrap it up for today. Thank you for everybody who joined us and dropped a comment or a question in. We'll be back. We're going to be doing more of these LinkedIn lives. So catch you next time, everyone.
And YouTube.
Oh, there we go.